What's up, everybody? Hope you can see me okay. I decided to go outside. I just need a little outdoors time, even though it's so hot out here. What is that thing right there? Oh, I fixed it. Hey, 10 factors in how to value land. That's today's topic. But please, if you're watching, jump in, say hi in the comments. Let me know what's on your mind, and I would love to try to help you out right now. I'm going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes here on live just to, to reach out to you. All right, so I'm looking for your comments, so let me know you're here today. All right, but today we're going to talk about 10 factors for how to value land. So you probably know, but I'm Chris Thomas. This is Land Flipping 101, where I help real estate investors, agents, wholesalers, house flippers. I'm helping you achieve 100% ROI without ever having to visit property or fix anything. That's what I call the lazy way to flip property. All right, myth buster, you don't have to work harder to make more money. How do you like that? My kids love the sound of that. My average profit so far this year for each deal has been $58,000. And guess what? I don't even use any of my own money to fund the deal. If you're interested in learning more about how I do this, I have 2 different offers for you. One where you can do it yourself, or one where you can hire me as your coach. Just post a comment if you want more information, and I'll share more about that later, because today's topic is what we're going to talk about. Okay, 10 factors for how to value vacant land. So what impacts the value of property? Who knows what impacts the value of property? All right, I'll start by saying, it's more of an art and not a science, right? Because value means something different to different people, right? So obviously the first thing, we've all heard it, location, location, location. That's true about houses, that's true about commercial property. It's also true about vacant land. Location is so super duper important. And really, it's the number one thing that adds value, but there's really nothing you can do to affect location, right? There's nothing you can do about location. So what you're going to want to consider is whether or not it's within like a short driving distance to some sort of civilization, like, services people need like healthcare or just basic supplies like groceries. All right. So the second thing is access, right? So there are beautiful properties all over the United States that are essentially landlocked, okay? Meaning that you just can't get to them through a helicopter. I mean, the only way you can get to them is through a helicopter. And those properties are pretty much worthless if you can't access them. I had one where the access point was literally a bridge, like a walking bridge, a swinging walking bridge over a river. That's how we were supposed to access it. I ended up selling that one to the state for the Parks Department. But you may be trying to get a neighbor to grant an easement, but in my experience, neighbors don't really like doing that. So it's just generally easier to sell your landlocked property to a neighbor, because good access adds huge amount of value to the property, right? And then there's the whole type of access. Like, is it legal access or is it just physical access? You know what I mean? Like, legal meaning, is there a deeded easement to get to this landlocked property? Or is there just a driveway that people have been using? Okay, because that affects access. You need legal access. It doesn't matter if there's a road there. If you don't have legal access to use that road, you're out of luck. Okay, that will deter, or that'll decrease the value of that property. Okay, and then talking about physical access, meaning, is there a road to the property? Okay, so if there is a road to the property, what kind of road is it? Okay, first it has to be a legally deeded road so that you have legal rights to use it. But then, is it a paved road or is it just a dirt road? And then who maintains it, right? Is it private or is it public? So if it's a private road, then basically you need legal access to use somebody's private road. You need an easement. If it's a public road, that means it's maintained by the county. Usually that does add value. You know, for the highest value add, you're looking for like a paved road that's county maintained. And, you know, if it has a couple of lanes that have a stripe down the middle, those are usually the highest, those add the highest amount of value. All right, hope that helps. Another huge factor that adds value to a parcel of rural land is utilities, particularly power, water, and sewer. So if there actually is a power pole and a meter already dropped onto the property, that's going to add value. Rarely do my properties have this. So here's what you need to know, okay? There is going to be a power line access point. It could be crossing the property or just could be nearby on the road. So we're looking for a power pole. So you need to see low tension, not high tension power wires. Okay, now keep in mind, usually the power line has a cost for running it to the property. So usually it's charged per foot. You can call the utility company, give them your property location, and ask them how much it would cost to run power to that property. But for every foot that comes in, there's a charge, and it can be expensive. So if it's like 2,000 feet away, that's not going to add value because there's going to be a significant cost in bringing that power in. But if it's within like 50 feet and it's just a matter of putting a pole in, that's a little bit better because there's a power right there at the street. Okay, next would be water, ideally hooked up to the city water. But rarely are my properties in this situation, okay? But we're talking about what adds value or how do you value a property? Well, city main line, but we need a meter. If there's a meter coming into the property, that adds value because it can be quite expensive just in adding a meter. You can ask the water company what it would cost to add a meter to your property. So if there's water ready to hook up on the property, that's definitely a plus. And then there's the whole you know, creek or stream, you know, the naturally occurring water. Usually that is a plus. Now, I'm not talking about like a dry creek bed that just gets a little seasonal rain that you know, swells up. I'm talking about what adds value is like a spring that flows all year. You know, people like live water on a property and they like water features unless it causes a flood zone. Okay, so keep that in mind and know whether or not your property has a flood zone. So if there is a well on the property, that adds value. So you can look for a drilled well that's in good functioning order, like meaning it's probably been put in the last, you know, 15 or 20 years and it's still being used and maintained. Those would add value. Now the cost to drill a brand new well is at least probably $10,000 just depending on where the water table is below that property. So because of the cost, you can see why it would add value. Okay, next in our 10 things list is septic or a sewage system. Now, if it's in place, it does add value just depending on the age. We're talking about a septic tank. If there's an old mobile home or a house on the property and it had a septic tank, that's usually a plus, but you're going to want to know how old it is and if it's been maintained. Otherwise, you're probably going to need to get it inspected. And then if you have a sewer line from the city, that is the ideal. That will give you the most value because it's already set up. All you have to do is tap in. And you can just call the sewer company or the water company to find out how much it is for a tap. All right, is this helpful? All right, next on the list would be the topography, right? Because there are properties that have a lot of acreage and they're in a great location, but they're on the side of a mountain, right? So once a property gets over about a 30% grade, it's considered unbuildable. unless you have very special structures. Okay, so I know like in San Francisco, in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, architectural and engineering feats that are needed to build those. So if the property is like in a huge ravine, that's going to remove value. That's going to detract value. All right, hope that helps. Next would be structures. All right, so some people argue about this, like adding a structure add value or no? Okay, it may or may not. So what do I mean by structures? Like an old house, an old barn, an old shed on the property. You know, some people think these structures are a huge plus, but they can be a liability. Why is that a liability? Well, I mean, how old are the structures? Have they been maintained? Is the roof rotting? There are all kinds of issues. Weather is going to beat that property to death over the years. So usually a buyer need insurance and liability insurance just to cover any, concerns about the property. An old house can attract vandals. It can attract squatters. I had a property I was trying to sell one time. It had a house on it, and drug addicts had been staying there. They knew it was vacant, and they did not take care of it, and they didn't care what it looked like. But I'm just saying, it may not add value, right? Oftentimes, if the structure is over, like, I don't know, 20, 30 years old, and if it hasn't been maintained, it'll go downhill really, really quick. And in most cases, you're going to want to bulldoze it, which is a significant cost to a buyer just to get it all cleaned up. So that would be an example of a structure that does not add value to the property. But a shed or other structure that's new and has been maintained, now that would definitely add value to the property. Like a cabin in the woods, that could add value if it's being taken care of. But if it has wood siding, that's something to worry about because wood will rot. Okay, so I think a lot of this is common sense, but these are just some of the areas that you should look at and consider. Not to mention if there's junk or trash to clean up, that reduces value, right? Because a buyer has to come in and clean that up. And then we talked about a road earlier when we were talking about access, but the whether or not there's it's not just having access to the property, but did they add a driveway up to a building site? Like that could potentially add value, whether it's paved or dirt, it doesn't matter. Like an old logging road or a trail system that's overgrown really does not add value to the property. Okay. All right, hope that helps. Another question I get a lot about, like sellers will often say, oh, my property's worth $100,000 and plus it has $100,000 of timber on it. And they're like, oh, this is the biggest deal. And I have to tell them, I'm really sorry, but that doesn't really add value to the property to me, okay? Because remember, I'm a lazy investor. I'm a lazy land flipper. I don't do any work to the property, and I definitely do not harvest timber. Look, no problems with people who do want to do that, but unless the property has like walnut trees, which is very rare, those trees probably don't have much value. And then also it would need to be a significant number of acres, right? Because most of the time those trees aren't worth what the seller thinks they are. Now, how can you find out what the value is? I would say you can call a person from the Department of Forestry. They have timber specialists, and they can come out and they can do what they call a cruise of the property, where they're really just walking the property, they're measuring trees, and they're creating they're trying to estimate what they can sell it for, and then they would give you like a price. I've never done that because most of the time they tell me my properties are probably either too small or that area is known to not have super valuable timber. So, I'm not doing stuff to the properties, so I'm not going to tell them that I'm going to pay them for their timber value, okay? All right, so the next thing would be the tax value, okay? So a lot of people will come to me and say, well, the county tax appraiser says my property is worth $100,000. And well, of course, they want to charge you taxes based on the value, right? And literally each and every taxing authority calculates value with a different calculator. So I would suggest you just completely ignore what the county says. It really has no bearing on the value of the land. Because at the end of the day, what my number 10 item on this checklist is what really does give the value when you're out there comping and trying to list property is the market value. Because your land is actually worth what someone is willing to pay you in cash for the property, right? And so the idea is that if you really want to sell your property, consider people with real cash offers that are bringing them to the table. And so you can also just, and this kind of brings up how to comp a property. And I'm not going to go all into that right now, but I'll tell you that basically market value is largely what matters when it comes to valuing your land. Okay, so take a look at properties in that same area that have sold recently, and then what did those sell for? Look at it on a price per acre, and that will give you a pretty good idea. All right, hope that helped. So I basically mentioned earlier I have 2 offers. If you're interested in learning more about how I sell property or buy and sell property, how I'm flipping it, you just want to either do it yourself or hire a coach or a mentor. I can help coach you. I have a very limited number of spots, so I would recommend that you start by just going through my training, Land Flipping 101. You can go to the website, and I think it's landflipping101.com/order, and you can just get a copy of the course, and it literally shows you step by step how I flip property and how this year I've made an average of $58,000 on each deal. If you have any questions about how I invest, you can just send me a private message on Facebook, or you can comment on this video. You can also send me an email at chris@landflipping101.com. I'll share more about my system for how I have automated and outsourced my land flipping business so that I'm only spending about an hour a day. I'm just saying yes or no to deals. I'm really not doing a whole lot more than that, which makes me available to help you. So if I can help, let me know, and I'll see you later.